Good morning. Welcome to this session on our history, our heritage, our responsibility. My name is Daniel Mattern, and I'm the cultural attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. It's my great pleasure to be here this morning. So happy to be in Karachi, enjoying my time here. Very happy to be at the Literature Festival, and I'm finding it very, very interesting. Today's session is about cultural heritage, its importance, and the efforts in Pakistan to protect the country's legacy. Cultural heritage is a reminder of the contributions and historical experiences of mankind, the development of art, civilization, and humanity. Through the U.S. Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation, also known as AFCP, we are taking a leading role to preserve the cultural heritage worldwide. And this program is indeed worldwide. Here in Pakistan, of course, your cultural fabric is rich and diverse, and this is reflected in numerous historical sites spread across the country. Overall, we have supported 19 AFCP sites in Pakistan, and these include the ancient city of Taxila, the Alamgiri Gate in Lahore, and the final resting place of Sindh's rulers, saints, philosophers at Makli. And I was out in Makli on Wednesday and really enjoyed my visit there. Our latest Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation grant is the conservation of Varun Dev Temple on Manor Island, a place I'd really like to get to during my time here in Pakistan. With me today, I have three experts, three professionals involved in our programs. Laura Tedesco is the cultural manager, cultural heritage manager, programs manager at the Department of State. She's joined us from Washington. Welcome, Laura. Thank you. Yasmin Lari is the chair of the Heritage Foundation and Pakistan's first female architect. And, sorry, lost my place. And we also have with us today Asma Ibrahim, Pakistan's first female archaeologist and co-founder and general secretary of the Sindh Exploration and Adventure Society. And it's her organization that's helping us, or we're helping them actually, preserve and the site at Varun Dev on Manor Island. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Asma, who's going to show us a brief film.
Yeah, Sarah, can you please? It's a short film about the Varun Dev Temple and the work we have done so far. And like Daniel told you that it's at the Manora Island, it's one of the very interesting place to visit and for picnickers. And first of all, it's an example of interfaith place where we have 2 Sikh Gurdwaras, 1 temple and 2 churches, and which are all of these buildings are the landmarks of Pakistan. Plus we have Lighthouse, which is one of the unique places in the world because it is lit by the mercury light, and it's one of the unique things which one has to see. Working on the temple. There were many renovations done totally unscientifically, which was one of the major causes to destroy and deteriorate the temple. And the present condition of the temple. tiles added to the walls, and the sandstone sculptures are deteriorated badly. People intervened at the right time. The temple was about to collapse. So at the moment we are doing the documentation and the complete survey of the temple as it is, analyzing the material used in the walls. Pakistan office.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have one more short film for you, Yasmin.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, it is probably. This film, actually, the video actually was prepared for the consultative committee, which we formed last year when we started the work on the tomb of Sultan Ibrahim and Amir Sultan Muhammad at Makli. But Heritage Foundation has been working at Makli since the late 1980s, and we have a full record now. We've done a lot of documentation and cataloging of something like, I think it's about 477 heritage assets there, which also include something like 75 above ground monuments, but also another 402 which are just platforms with lots of absolutely amazing graves which are carved with cenotaphs and so on. And so there's a huge documentation that is now available on Makli, and I would very much urge anybody who's interested to go and do more work there, because it is such a mine of and such a wealth of information and amazing kind of tile mosaic, which is kashi or calligraphy and stonework and carvings. This particular video was actually prepared for the consultative committee meeting that we held just 3 days ago, and Laura Tedesco is a member in that. She had been there before as well, when we had presented all the documentation that we had carried out. So today in the video we do not have the documentation, but we have the work of conservation and the way it's been carried out. And so I'd like you to just we'll try to go through it as quickly as we can to show what has been done. We still have another something like 9-10 months to go, but the work is now going on. It's a collaboration between AFCP, the Government of Sindh, and Heritage Foundation of Pakistan. And of course, it's a World Heritage Site. It has tremendous value from that point of view. Spans over 400 years actually, all the monuments that are there. But this one is focusing on Sultan Ibrahim too. was when we took it over and started working. There's all discussion about, outstanding universal values, the values that we are considering as we go along in terms of conservation. As there are lots of charters and guidelines, and we try to follow the international charters to see that we do not do anything that goes beyond or try to make it look new. It's very important for us to see that we keep the authenticity as much as possible.
The first step is test batches for mortar. The test batches are made of different ratios. Sand, soil and mortar samples are also kept on site for references. The first test batch that the Heritage Foundation did during the conservation was on the parapet wall. This is one of the mortar samples which was used to rebuild the parapet wall. We always mark the dates on our new work. This is a test batch made for repointing. We prepare the mortar with the same ingredients so that the repointing does not look different from the earlier work. We select batch, mark it, and then work on the repointing. Using brushes, we clean the floor from dirt and dust, and then we fill the exterior floor joints. To clean the graffiti of the tomb, we use a mixture of organic soap and Lisapol. After all the test batches, the Heritage Foundation team starts the conservation work by firstly cleaning the outer surface of the monument. The eroded bricks that have created cracks, holes and crevices are also cleaned very thoroughly with soft brushes, and no unnecessary material was removed. We prepared the mortar on site with the local material closest to the material used originally on the monument. Brick dust is mixed with lime and lime charoli, mixed in with good water consistency to make a workable mortar consistency mixture, which will be applied on the base where the bricks are placed.
Project, we've been able to actually train a
Here
huge number
the
of
artisan
artisans.
is doing the
Very good thing.
repointing, which is refilling the mortar between two bricks, cleaning the surface of the old brick and the new one he has placed in. The plumb line needs to be checked to see whether the surface level of the new brick matches the old brick level. After the repointing and the underpinning of the specific area of the tomb, the walls are covered with wet jute cloth so that the proper curing of the new material is done. The jute cloth needs to remain damp for 15 days. This is the finished surface after the repointing of the entire alcove. Then the team cleans the external floor and prepares mortar samples which will match the already used mortars and fill all the gaps between the rock floor. Then the team repairs the gutters, which started from the top and went right down to the floor using line and Charoli mortar. To work on the tomb's dome, the dome must be first secured by bamboo scaffoldings. The entire dome of Sultan Ibrahim's tomb was secured by bamboo scaffoldings with an extra protective layer. The first objective was the repointing of the drum, the underpinning of the drum, and then the curing, and then the finishing repointing of the drum. Then the artisans chisel the rock for the alcove floor to the precise measurement and make the floor. Then the stabilization of the kashi work where the gaps were filled where once beautiful calligraphy stood out. Then the finished niches and the floors. The interior of Sultan Ibrahim's tomb had been deteriorating for decades with damaged stucco work. With soft brushes, the team removed spiderwebs, wasp and bird nests. A mild dust blower was also used to remove loose dust particles from these massive holes in the stucco work. Cleaning was done very carefully because of the fragile nature of the stucco work. Stucco samples were prepared before the actual work was done on the tomb. After finalizing the stucco patch, the actual test patch was applied in one of the niches of the interior of the dome. This is the scaffolding put up in the interior, where the artisans restore the stucco work. For the reference, the material is available on site. Removal of vegetation from the outer surface of the dome requires damp jute cloth, which is laid on the plant to soften them so that they can be removed easily. Then, with the help of a syringe, we inject vinegar into the cracks and the openings so that the roots dry out and the entire plant can be removed so that they don't grow again. Then the crevices and the cracks need to be filled in, and this will be done by grouting.
Thank you. Another very nice film that illustrates a lot that I hope we can discuss. So to kick things off, I'd like to just ask a general question about the difficulties and challenges of conserving, preserving, managing these historical sites here in Pakistan. And I'd like to start with you, Laura.
Sure. Can you all hear me all right? From my perspective, what I regard as the difficulty is the vast number of sites that are in need of some sort of preservation or stabilization, and the limited resources, both human resources and financial resources, to do that work. I think in a very basic way, that's one of the biggest challenges, and that is sort of the destruction of sites is happening on a more quickly than the population of professionals and interested lay people can possibly keep up with the destruction of sites, not just in Sindh, but across Pakistan.
Great. Asma, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with Laura, because she is actually not living in Pakistan, but she realizes the difficulties we are facing in this country. And being in the Department of Archaeology and Museums with federal government for about 20 years, I realized that how difficult it is. Although we had a P&D section where we had some trained staff, but for Department of Archaeology, it was very difficult to keep an eye on all the monuments of Pakistan, because we have humongous amount of historical and archaeological monuments. And we tried to train some staff, but then after their retirement, there was a big gap in the Department of Archaeology. And after the devolution in 2011, I think that all the provinces are facing the same problem, the trained staff, and I think uniform policy of conservation, which is not there with us, which is very much required at the moment, because a lot of private agencies have come in and they have all started adopting their own methods of conservation, which is very, very concerning, that after 10 years or 5 years, how the monument will react to that. Because if a monument needs conservation, it needs a detailed investigation. Just like you go to a doctor and the diagnosis has to be done beforehand, before you start doing the conservation, and which is very badly ignored in our country, which I realize that people just think that they start doing conservation and don't waste time in documentation and investigations, but that's very important, which is totally neglected in our country. Unless you investigate the disease of the patient, you cannot treat it. So we start to treat the patient from the top, but not from the inside. That is very much concerning for me, being in the field of archaeology. So I look at it with the eye of an archaeologist, and which is totally different from just being a conservationist. So I suppose that that's one of the major problems which you have pointed out.
Thanks, Asma. Yasmin.
Well, of course I agree with the speakers and the problems they've highlighted, but I think we have to change the whole system if we want to change, if we want to save all this enormous treasure that we do have in this country. I think we have to involve more and more people into the whole thing. The communities have to be involved. We have to provide more training to everybody. Because I think unless we develop this sense of safeguarding of heritage in everybody, I don't think we'll be able to save this enormous reservoir of heritage that we do have, as Laura points out. And I could go on this, but I think maybe we give a chance to the audience to ask questions, and maybe then we can maybe debate it a little bit. Because I think we have really minimized the role of communities into the whole thing, and perhaps, I don't want to really, perhaps I should not really say it, but I think glorified the task of the expert. And unless we bring the whole thing somehow, bring it in the domain of both together, and each one maybe training the others and so on, I mean, I know how much we are losing all the time, because we've done this enormous e-data bank, and we've got the latest photographs and images of us, about something like almost 14 or 1,500 heritage sites which are disappearing. So, you know, I think maybe we need a sort of more discussion on this from the audience as well.
Sure, sure. Although I'd like to ask one more question, sort of more kind of basic, fundamental question, which is, why is this so important? If we could just tease that out a little bit, so that we can get a bit more out there on the table. So.
Why the conservation is so important?
Yes, right.
Well, there is a controversy about it. A lot of scholars think that we shouldn't be conserving old monuments and what's the use of it? We're just wasting the land and we should go with the new constructions, like Japan has adopted this philosophy. But for me, being, like I said, being an archaeologist, I think these are the part of our history which should be there for young coming generations to see what we were. Like when I'm in Germany, the Islamic Museum, and I see our Islamic monuments and Islamic artifacts, I really feel proud and I feel okay, Muslims are not that bad which are portrayed these days. You know, we were good people, we were scholars, we were intellectuals. So I mean, after 1 or 2 generations, if we don't preserve these things, the younger generations won't even have an idea what we were. And every nation should do that. And it's I think that the heritage is the whole world heritage. It's not that just a Pakistan heritage. The heritage is uniform, and we should own the whole world's heritage. It's not you just cannot keep it in separately, like only Pakistan heritage is important. It's all interrelated, and we need heritage. Unless we have the roots, we cannot go ahead. So it is very important in my eyes, and we usually have a debate about it, that why you archaeologists keep on conserving old monuments and losing our very precious spaces. You know, they can have commercial plazas and all that, but I think in my view it is very important.
Laura, do you want to get in here?
I would. I'd like to add to what Asma, Dr. Ibrahim is saying, and that there are a couple of ways to think about why it's important to preserve heritage, or many ways to think about it, but I'll emphasize two, and I think about this subject constantly. There's sort of the micro level and the macro level. The micro level, so these monuments and sites are like signposts for a community, whether it's a small community in Tata or it doesn't really matter. You can scale it in any way. And these monuments represent a point of reference in a historical narrative that sort of creates the larger narrative of a community or a region or a province. Then on the macro level, with respect to Pakistan, the history of Pakistan, deep history of Pakistan, is profoundly important for sort of a more global narrative. So if we lose these monuments, and I'm not saying, I'm a bit of a realist, and I don't think that we can preserve all of them. But if we don't pay attention, and little by little and quickly these sites are being destroyed, then we're losing very important sort of references to an entire historic narrative. And when they're gone, that narrative then becomes distorted and can be more easily altered for nefarious reasons. And so for that, it's very important to preserve these monuments for a small community, for the nation of Pakistan, and as well as sort of a more global narrative. So I'd like to hear what, Yasmin, you have to say.
Well, because I don't think anybody can disagree that all these whatever heritage sites we do have must be saved. At the same time, I think we have to also understand that for the common people, unless we somehow go out and apprise them a lot of times they know what is important to them and they will take care of it. A lot of times they don't know. And I think this has to be spread, because heritage is a source of pride for all of us. This is what gives us, the will to live. And if I may quote the example of what we did with Karachi during the early 2000s with Caravan Karachi. We were celebrating the heritage of Karachi, sitting on the streets, and thousands of people from all walks of life would turn up and they would celebrate heritage of the city. So that's possible. And lots of kids and children came and they sang songs about the city, or they talked about it, or enacted plays, and it was being done all on the street. So it was not a few select educated elite that was involved. The public was involved. And a lot of times young people would come up to me and say, we didn't know this building was important. Now we know, so now we can take care of it. And I think that's where myself included, I think experts are failing. We are not going out enough to see that we pass on the information that is needed to the general public, so that would also rise up and take care of it. And, I think it's just got to be done. And I agree with Laura that this is too much, and maybe we can't save all of it, but I think we can, actually. I think we can. And I think we must. We've got to find ways. You see, we've got to get out of our cocoons of expertise, and we've got to pass on the information and knowledge and what we know to others. Like right now we don't do it. We do it as a project, like wonderful AFC project that we are dealing, we are working on. But the whole thing has to be that the community has to get involved. They have to start taking pride in it. Only then these things will be saved and they will carry on, through whatever decades and centuries that we want our next generations to be able to. Because we are only custodians. We are not actually owners of this. Yeah. We're only custodians. This is an inheritance that we have to pass on to our future generations. And everybody, every one of us, and I'm not talking of the elite sitting here or people who are intellectuals and so on. I'm talking of the general public. And I might also perhaps say a few words on that, if you will permit. We think that people don't know, but they know very well what is valuable for them. They know it. And what we have to do is to help them to preserve it. We do not do that. Because, for instance, everywhere there'll be a small mosque or a temple or a mazar, and they don't know how to take care of it. They're taking care of it all the time, but as Asma says, they're probably taking care of it wrongly. All the wrong notions are applied on that. But who has gone and told them how to do it? We haven't done it. How can they then do it right? So I think there's a huge need for all of us to get out of these ivory towers that I call them, and be out there in the field and telling people how they can take care of their heritage. Only then we'll save them.
And I would like to add in that Yasmin's comment that this was the reason that we established this NGO, the Seas Pakistan, and where we train young people, we train people in paper conservation, we train people in pottery making, tile making, and all those crafts which are dying. And all the people, young people are welcome. It's a voluntary organization. So we have trained hundreds of them. And the other thing we do, there are several ways we should adopt for common people to come and join us. The other thing we did, we have established this Karachi Foundation, Karachi Conference Foundation, where we hold a conference every year in November, and everybody is welcome to read their papers about the history of Karachi. And it's now the third year that we held that conference. So there are several ways to involve public, and I'm happy that public is involved. And we did one conservation project at Rumi, which is on the way to Balochistan. And after completing the conservation, we handed over to the community, and it was totally looted. The graves were dug, and they were thinking that treasure hunters, that they will find the treasure there. But now the community is looking after. There is a small rest house, and it is very well going on. So that is the thing, that after doing a project, you should give it hand over to the community. They should have the ownership of the project, and we are very much successful in that, doing that. So I'm happy about it.
In the spirit of having a greater public discussion and conversation between experts and the general public, let's open it up for questions. That looks like there's lots of questions. Does someone have a microphone? Or, yeah. Let's just straight ahead, this gentleman.
I keep on going to Canada every year, and I have an observation. Which I would like to highlight in this forum. I visited the consulate about a year ago, and to my surprise, I found that the history of Pakistan starts from Haran Minar and Badshah Masjid. There was nothing about Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, or anything. So this year I happened to meet the Consulate General. He said, "When did you visit?" I said, "About a year ago." So he said, "No, sir, now visit, the situation has changed." I don't know whether it has just changed in the consulate in Canada, because we have so many consulates and so many embassies all over the world. So I think this is the place where I thought I should mention it, and something could be done about it. Thank you.
Any other comment? No? Okay.
Well, we have no control over the consulate, so sorry. And they don't even listen to us, I tell you, if we try.
Please, sir.
Yes, sir. One of the ways when you want to involve the community is for the community to know what is there. yes, teaching them how to conserve it is one thing, but if you see a very positive thing that's happened in Karachi, even in Lahore, where they've got these tours which are going around old, buildings and showing them and talking about them. Younger and older people like myself try to understand what it is, and then we have a link with them. So in future, if somebody tries to do something over there, I'm sure there'll be more public awareness for them. So I think there is a role of involving people in terms of tourism to actually visit these sites, and even as broken or as depleted as they are, to get to know what is actually there. I went to Makli and with somebody who knew a lot about it, and I had a completely different perspective of it now than I did before. And I think we should there is a lot of internal tourism that you can actually use, and for that people to get to know what is happening out there, and then at the same time try to teach them how to conserve it, because that could be a part of it. I'd like to ask just one question to you, sir, is that we can see there's a lot of work which is happening from the funds provided from your United States government and your ambassador. How much of it is actually being involved in capacity building of people to conserve it? Because in future, that's what's going to carry on, not the brick and mortar which is done once.
Right. I don't know if Laura, if you want to jump in here on this, because I know you've been working on these projects for a number of years in terms of capacity building and and the tourist role.
Yeah, I'll address the capacity building component first. You're absolutely right that the longer view of these bricks and mortar conservation projects absolutely require a capacity building component. And I wish I could tell you that from 2001 or 2002, when this Ambassadors Fund project, that we were prescient enough to mandate that capacity building was included in each project. But sadly, we weren't. But on the glass half full, in the last few years, we have required and encouraged that through these projects, there is absolutely a training component included. We were maybe a little slow to catch on, but it's now very much a part of all the initiatives.
We are doing it at Varun Dev Temple. We have included the community, and there are some interns. We are training them. So it's very much part of every project, and I hope after a few years you will find some expert. But here I would like to clarify one thing. There is a big difference between preservation and conservation. You just cannot hand over conservation to everybody. It's a very technical and scientific job. You can teach the community how to preserve it and remain preserved, but not to interfere with the monument. That's a very technical thing.
If I may, we always involve students particularly. There are lots of always interns who come in and join us on almost every step of the conservation work that we take on. Having said that, I have to say that I think we have so many sites which are outside, and I agree with tourism completely that we should be able to go and see, and young people need to be involved. With us, we actually are shifting our artisans from one side to the other. For instance, the ones we trained here have gone and worked in Kot Diji in one of our projects, or the ones who were trained at the site at Makli as well as Kot Diji, they've gone and worked in Diyai Khan. So we are trying to take our people from one to the other who go and teach others. Our philosophy is that we teach through at a lateral kind of level, even they might not be literate or anything, but they are able to teach others, and we need artisans who are very, very good, and we need to train them more. But also, I think we have to work out a way, and we've done that at Makli. There's AFCP, of course, is a major project we are handling, but there are others that we have also done, and one of them is how to provide first aid, which is a cheaper way of doing it, and anybody can be taught that, because it's all reversible. So you use only mud, lime, and bamboo. These are the three materials I use in any case, and that is reversible, and you can stabilize the structure, and you can buy more time. That's what I'm advocating. Let's buy more time.
Yes, question here, then up front, and then over there. So please, sir.
I've seen a documentary by BBC, the case of fake Persian mummies, which Asma Ibrahim over here, she discovered it. But that documentary has been not shown in Pakistan publicly. I would request that it be shown publicly, and Asma Ibrahim be awarded the highest bravery award by US and Pakistan.
Thank you so much. You're so kind. Well, I did an agreement with BBC that I would show it I would be allowed to show it in Pakistan, but none of the channels are interested to show it. So I'm sorry.
Please.
Though I agree with the idea of preservation and conservation of these sites, when I visited Makli, I was just thinking, while the West was building universities like Harvard and the great institutions, what we were doing was building the biggest graveyard in the world. So this was just my feeling. So the point that I just want to make is, okay, we need to build great institutions rather than building great houses to show to the world that we are great.
Anything from the panel? Interesting.
I think it would take years for our nation to learn that we are trying to do it, but we are, my personal view is that we are far behind that concept that we should build institutions than the individuals. And I always convincing my high-ups that please try to build institutions. Like if I'm out of one museum, that museum is just finished, and now I'm with the other museum, and I keep telling them, please build up a human capacity we need. We need to establish institutions. We don't need individuals. But it is very sad that we are still the individuals and there is no institutions. So we need to do it at the higher level. We try our best, but you know our situation. So.
All right. I just have so first of all, preserving those houses and graves is important, because if you don't know where you're coming from, you're definitely not going to know where you're going. And this question is for Ms. Lari especially. How do you balance preservation and commercial instinct? I mean, let us take a very live example of Karachi. Let's look at the Burns Road, Arambagh area. Beautiful buildings around about that area, but some of the families who live in those buildings almost live in squalid conditions. Now the only way for them to get out of that poverty trap, or to exit from that being poor, is to sell to someone or to exit to someone. When you do not have any historical or any government-based avenue to exit, so how do you balance commercialism and preservation? How do you help these people get out, preserve their buildings and their heritage, which it is part of them, but still get out of that cycle? Because this is the only asset they have. I mean, it's a very Pakistani thing. In every Pakistani, the first thing they want to do when they get a paycheck is ki apna ghar ho, So this is their house. This is the only asset that they've already built. So I mean, you can't even fault them really for wanting to sell out to a builder. But how do you balance that? And I was just thinking, Karachi is live example. Arambagh is, because I walk around, I work in that area. It's a very beautiful. But some of these people are selling out left, right, and center because they have nothing better to do. So how would you do that?
Absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. I think it's a very good question, and this is something that we all have to be battling with. As you might know, Heritage Foundation started off with actually getting the law through in whatever it was. What is the 1994? And we had actually catalogued the huge number of heritage buildings of Karachi, which was about 600 at the time, and they were all notified under that. So I'm quite familiar with the beautiful buildings that you're talking about, and we all just love them and want them to be maintained. The purpose of the law was that we should declare these as national heritage. This is not a personal. It's not only for that family that lives there, but for all of us. So state has to provide funding for it. And I can tell you that money is not a problem in this country. There are organizations with huge amount of money that is available. That is state money that's available. We all have to really work out how that money gets to people who can then start conserving. But at the same time, we have to tell them how to do it. Nobody tells people how they can actually conserve and use their structure. And all these buildings actually, because they are national heritage, all of us have to try to help them to be able to save them. Because why should they suffer because they have a notified building? They should actually take advantage of it. Why should they be spending their own money? We should all be helping them. So I think we have to work out a mechanism, and young people like yourselves should come forward and do it. I mean, we are at Heritage Foundation. I'm quite prepared that we can work out things, and let's all together try and save all that. Let's save Karachi at least, if nothing else.
Thanks. Ma'am, did you have a question?
Maybe we need, because I'm in education myself, and I think maybe if we, when in our history curricula, we help children, and so in fact our complete social studies curricula, we focus somewhat on teaching children and schools in general to understand the value of this heritage and the role that they can play. And if we go back to, say, middle school onwards, we might be able to make a difference because children go home and talk in schools. When they do projects, it's discussed at home as well. Another aspect is that we need to make sure that it does not appear to be politicized. You see, this aspect of what is to be preserved and what is not to be preserved has to be made plain, has to become a subject of conversation, and so that there is a balance seen in the, in the community, so there's more of an ownership for it. And that's all what I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
answer that? Okay,
No,
you
please,
can.
Karen.
Yeah, this is a very good thing, and like I have written 2 course books of children, class 4 and class 5, social sciences books for Far Eastern Publications, and I did include all these chapters there, but after that I didn't have some time. But now when I'm in the museum, I have special educational programs for educational institutions, and I try to I reciprocate the things they have in their course. I try to display them in the museum, and if they feel that there is something the children should learn, so I have special programs for that, and I devise those programs. I make documentaries, and I'm very happy that a lot of schools are coming to my museum every day. We have around 150 children in my museum, which is of course difficult for me to manage. I don't have such manpower, but I'm just happy that we are teaching children about our heritage. And unless you take them to the museum, it's a visual world nowadays. Children don't like to learn so much unless you show them, you bring them to a lively place, they touch and they feel and they see. So that's how they enjoy learning. So we have many interactive things for children, and I'm happy that we are contributing a lot, and maybe after a few years, if we have more such museums in Pakistan, we will make a difference. You're most welcome to bring your school to my museum.
But I might also say that UNESCO actually has developed a very good program of heritage in young hands, which is related to heritage assets in Pakistan. And I think schools, maybe would do well to perhaps start using it. But also, I might also just inform you that we are starting a channel which will be focusing on a lot of issues, including heritage. And certainly, children are going to be very much part of it. It's called the Barefoot Academy, and it'll be for marginalized communities, where I think we need to make them aware of a lot of things. And certainly, heritage is one of them, but that we need to nurture and bring up as much as possible. So, there we are.
Thank you.
Google has done a wonderful job in preserving all world heritage online. If you guys could kindly point out towards some localized fora where we can go and interact and be more, maybe become a part of the wonderful work that you people are doing.
Well, Google Cultural Institute actually showcases Makli. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but we've developed that program. It's on Google Cultural Institute now, and there are 2 of our presentations there. But of course, there need to be many more from Pakistan. I think there's also from Lahore. There's a museum, Lahore Museum, which is amazing kind of site. Yeah. So there's much more, of course, that needs to be up there. I agree with you, absolutely.
Are there any fora that you can point out where we can get in touch with you people?
Yes, sure. We can discuss it whenever. Yeah, I'm available.
So there's a question up here.
I don't have a question, I just have an observation. I heard your presentation a while ago and then I visited the museum. I just wanted to commend you for the excellent job. It's an amazing museum.
Thank you so much. I'm happy people are coming there in such a big security area, I really appreciate visitors when they come to my museum, and I try my best. Thank you.
Thanks. Got a few minutes left. Any other questions for the panel? Any other thoughts? All right, well, why don't we turn to the panelists? Oh, sorry. We've got another round. Okay.
Because I've lived in Jhelum area, and the fort over there, Rohtas Fort, it's just crying for preservation. It's such a wonderfully fascinating place, the Rohtas Fort. Have you been there?
It's a World Heritage Site, actually, as it happens. It's a World Heritage Site.
It's a World Heritage Site. But it's like, it's like a current community is living inside their post offices and stuff like that, and everything. You can hardly
There was an NGO working there for a few years,
place.
But they did a very bad job, actually. That's what I was pointing out, that there should be regulations. They were there and they spent a lot of money, but they failed completely. So maybe somebody else has to take it. Now, after the devolution, we cannot interfere in other provinces' matters. So it has to be taken up by Punjab government.
Okay, one
Punjab,
final.
sorry, may I just
Please.
make a comment? Punjab government is set to destroy something like 25 heritage buildings in the city of Lahore itself, so I don't know what they'll do. So, you know.
Yeah, with this green.
One final comment, and then we'll do another.
Ages ago, because I like heritage and this type of stuff, I like building old buildings for some reason. But you guys had Ms. Lari, you put out a plan to make Sadr a walkable area to walk around and pretty much like a downtown central, but only. Whatever happened to that? I mean, plan, did it ever just fill out? No one bought it? The builders? Just wondering. I just have a question.
No, but I'm very surprised you bring up this because it's such a long time ago, and I'm surprised that you even remember because you're very young to remember this was so long ago. So this was way back in 1994 that we actually developed the whole thing, and I thought Empress Market is the place where it could become a real hub for the city of Karachi. The whole thing was developed and everything was done, but the government changed or something happened, and it's just that fate has it for us.
And one of those 25 houses that they want to, the Kapurthra house in Lahore,
Yes.
that they want to take down, belongs to us. We're trying to file a case.
Please do. Join the.
Actually, they keep telling, they don't want to knock the house down. They want to knock the quarters behind the house down. And what people don't understand is that the quarters are an integral part of the house, an integral part of the story, because a house used to belong to the Maharaja of Kapurthala, and these Maharajas had. When you talk about quarters, these aren't small quarters. These are hundreds and hundreds of rooms because they had an entourage, and it tells a whole story of the house through some very downtown Abbey style, and you get to see the story of the house or what type of style they lived in from the silk quarters.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens with that. But I'm very sad. We'll fight it as far as we can, but then this is, as I say, it's the government.
This is the reason that we have a buffer zone around every historical or heritage site. We need to leave a space of buffer. So that's what nobody is caring about, and this is the reason that they are destroying these.
Yeah, well, they pull out stuff like eminent domain, and suddenly everything goes out the window. But we will fight till the end.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
As you were discussing, as Laura and us, as we were discussing the other day, what happens when development takes place and how misdirected development can be when there's a possibility of saving. Instead of saving, we go and destroy when there's no need to destroy, because you can easily change the alignment of the orange line or whichever line it is, and you could save them all, right? I mean, this is something that was really going on.
Yeah, it's not only a challenge, I think, for Pakistan. I mean, we see this in the United States, and I've seen this in a number of other countries also. There's this push and pull, the competition between what's perceived as development at the cost of heritage, without perhaps a perspective that it doesn't have to be an either or, that there is a solution where if this orange line is so critical for Lahore that perhaps its construction can go forward. I'm agnostic on that subject. I don't know Lahore, but its construction could go forward, but not at the expense of these 24 or 26 monuments that will be impacted and likely destroyed for its advancement.
And there's World Heritage sites there as well. I mean, there's the Shalimar Gardens in there, and there's some wonderful Mughal period sites. And there's British period and GPO that I restored in the 80s. That the portico is going to be destroyed.
This should be raised to the international level. I think that this.
Yes, it has
this should be in the press.
They have a movement against it, but nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening.
They're in the court right now, Laura. They're trying to fight it, but we have to see because
they don't really want to destroy it. The thing is that you've got at about 6
Yes.
you have a line going in, so the line of vision of those buildings
It's very close to those buildings.
will be destroyed.
Another thing I would like to bring in front of this forum is about Karachi, what Riaz Malik is doing with our Stone Age sites of Karachi, where he is having his Bahariya town. So there are Stone Age sites aging back to 2 million years old Stone Age, which nobody knows that Karachi was. We have 2 million years old Stone Age sites which have been destroyed. Then at Gadap we have Neolithic period, Indus Valley, and Buddhist sites. So we tried our best, but nobody listened to us. So I thought that I should bring in front of this forum that if somebody is interested to take it up, they might.
Yeah, but also with their flyover or what they did
Yes.
near Clifton, they already
Yes.
damaged that wonderful Hindu temple that is,
and Abdullah
partly
Shah
buried.
Ghazi.
And Abdullah Shah
Right
Ghazi
inside the
Mazar is
Karachi
totally being made new because he's giving 40 crores of rupees for it.
Yeah.
So the money is really driving the kind of thing that should be done with heritage sites, which is totally insane.
And we
actually.
feel very
Yeah.
helpless. You know?
All right.
That's right. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
right. That was a landmark
But also
of
the
Karachi.
temple that was, the part of it. That's got cracks in it and so on. And because of this underpass that they were making right there. So yeah, that's because wealth and money has taken over, unfortunately.
All right. With that, could we have some parting thoughts from the panel? Any additional?
My parting thought, I think, is grounded in something very pragmatic, and I adore Yasmin's idealism of sort of crowdsourcing preservation. But my thought is simply to pass along a message of do no harm. If we can't enlist a kind of army of lay people, preservationists around us, then at least to send the message of do no harm simply to the sites. I think that's the best that we can do in our daily lives. And it's just a very simple kind of way of going about things. And so not to then... Well, I mean, we're really focusing on all the sites that we've lost, but switching that around for a moment and maybe thinking about what can we do now to preserve what is still there, or at least not damage further. Because as Yasmin said earlier, and something we've talked about this week together, we're simply stewards, sort of custodians of these sites for the next generation. They really don't belong to any of us, and they're just to be taken care of for those who come after us. So I just leave with that.
Thanks, Laura. Asma.
Well, my thought, like always, is that whatever we can preserve, we should. And whenever I'm with the crowd and interested people who are there, I find one or two people who come to me, and then we start working. So that's a very positive thing for me, and that's why I go everywhere, wherever they invite me to talk about it. And there are people who realize the importance of these monuments. They want to work, but they just need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of money to carry out that work. And I think I'm hopeful. Sometimes I really get disheartened about the situation we face, but I'm still hopeful, and I think there are many young people sitting here, and they will come to us, and we are there to help you and carry out the work further, because we won't be there for many years. So you people are most welcome to come and join us in this cause.
So, well, first of all, I think it's very important for the young generation to take the torch on. I think enough of us, at least my generation, right? So young people have to be involved in all this now. And the other thing that I would put it to you, I want to apply what I've applied in my flood areas and my earthquake areas, where we train local people and tell them how to do it. So technical capability has to be imparted to people, to common people who may be non-literate, who may be totally poor, but there's an innate creativity in them as well. And if we tell them they want to take pride in something, this is the only way they can survive. So heritage is very important from that point of view. So I think if we can create a whole army of young people who are willing to go to all the villages, take the message, tell them how to do it. I will certainly not advocate them messing up a historic structure, of course not. But I think we can really tell people how you can do it right. And as Laura says, do no harm. That's all we have to tell them. But tell them how they can stabilize, how they can do it so that it's all reversible. Tell them how they can buy time for their heritage that's part of their lives as well. So this is, I think, what I feel we need to do in Pakistan.
With that, I'd like to thank the panelists for their contributions. I'd also like to thank the audience for your attention and your great questions.
Good audience, yes.
So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Let's clap for the audience, yes.
Thank you for attending this session. Our next session is titled Nayi Awaazein, New Voices in Urdu Writing, which will be moderated by Tanveer Anjum. And the participants shall be Ali Akbar Natiq, Mustafa Arbab, and Inam Nadeem. The session will begin at 1:45 p.m.